Hello everyone, I'm Tim from Tim's PC and I build custom PCs to suit anyone's needs or budget. I also live stream all of my builds and repairs right here for transparency and educational purposes. So if you would like to have an awesome new PC built live here, send me a message today. So tonight we're going to be building Aleyna's PC. So he's come to me wanting basically a budget rig, but he wants to get as much value out of his budget that he could. So I put together this build for him. He mainly wants to play Fortnite, so it's not a overly demanding game. You can get it to run on some relatively low spec hardware, but this setup here will run Fortnite quite well. So
name's Pax, Tim.
Oh, sorry. I got
We're
the.
really crap at names. I'm really sorry if we, annihilated your name.
Oh man, I feel so bad. Pax,
We really
no worries.
try. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. The order of the names in Facebook. Like I know you put the family name first. Is that right? I think that's right. I think that's right.
I'm just being like a douche now.
Probably. I'm just being ignorant, culturally ignorant. No, I try not to be. I try not to be. I'm Australian, so I've got that against me. No worries. Well, let's get into it. Let's go over what we've got here today. So,
It's my wife's name, he says.
it's your wife's name.
I kind of had a feeling
I
what
was.
going on.
We were talking about this. We were talking about this. We were like, Aleyna. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's a dude. I'm like, well, I hear there's people have some pretty weird names. So you can't ever judge people these days. It's 2021. Anyone can be whoever they want to be and go by whatever name they want to go by, and that's completely fine. It is. I don't care.
No, it's all good.
I don't care.
Anyway,
we're totally going off on another tangent here. So,
Nick says hi.
hey Nick, how you going? Good to have you with us. Alrighty. Well, let's get started and let's go over what we've got here today. So, I guess we'll start here with the graphics card because these are quite hard to get a hold of at the moment. This is the GTX 1660 Super graphics card. This is a twin fan version, so it actually has decent cooling solution on it. So it's the overclockable version, so that's why it has this little OC logo down here. The other features of it says Turing shaders, which is Turing is the name of the architecture for this graphics card. GDDR6, that's the type of memory that's on this graphics card, also called VRAM. DirectX 12, that shows you the version of DirectX that it's compatible with, well, the highest version. And Ancel is another NVIDIA technology.
Jackson wants to know, when you get new RAM, can you install in the case, or do you have to take everything out of your PC?
To install new RAM,
Yes.
to install new RAM, you'll only need
All you
to.
have to do is take out the RAM.
Yeah.
You just unclip those
If
little
you've
clip
got-
things on the side of it, and
Yep.
you take it out, and then you put new RAM in.
Yeah. So if you've got two sticks in your system and you've got 4 slots, you would want to just populate those 2 empty slots. You don't have to take anything apart or anything like that. You can just put the new sticks in there. What you have to be careful of is compatibility with what you've already got in there.
Types.
Yeah, well, you
Well,
can
maybe
you
but
can
it has
if
to
the
depend on
timings and stuff are
speed and
correct.
stuff,
Yeah, it's the timings and the speeds, the latency, things like that come into play. You can get different specs to actually play with each other okay in 2 different channels. But in general, the general rule, the best advice for upgrading your memory, if you're not going to buy a whole new set of 4, you should buy another set of the same ones that you've got pre-installed, because that's just going to guarantee no headaches with the RAM. So where's our RAM? We'll go to our RAM next because we've talked about it.
Nick says, always down for some shenanigans and awesome builds. And Donald says, heck yeah, I'm here, yay, night off.
Ah, nice. Good to have you with us, Donald. So yeah, for our RAM here, we've got 16 gigabytes of this.
Sorry to interrupt you. Jackson says no. I got the new 4 RAMs. They're all the same. I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, you can just go and install them straight away.
Unplug them all and put them.
You might get an interesting message come up on the screen when you first turn on your computer. It might say something like "System configuration changed. Press F1 to enter setup." That's completely normal. It's just the system detecting that you've installed new memory and that the system now has more memory than it had previously. So you can just, I think F2 is to continue and just boot to Windows normally, and you can just boot to Windows normally after that. The only thing you might want to do in BIOS is if it's fast RAM, like faster than the stock speed, you might have to enable the XMP profile, or the DOHP, I think it's called, on some AMD motherboards that didn't pay for the licensing for Intel XMP. That's another conversation for another day. I don't like to get into those details. That makes everyone's eyes glaze over here. But anyway, so this RAM here that we've gone with is 16 gigabytes of T-Create RAM. This is just 2666 memory, so it's not like XMP memory or anything like that. But with our i5 9400F CPU here, it's going to pair quite nicely. So there we go. We've covered our RAM there and our CPU kind of. This is the Intel Core i5 9400F. So pick this up on a bargain because Intel 9th Gen are essentially on the way out. Intel's about to release their 11th generation of processor, so you get some really good prices at the moment on i5.
And then, like, releasing 12.
Well, that's another conversation.
Okay.
So for our motherboard here, we've got one of the Value King motherboards here, the ASRock B360 HTV. So these motherboards can be picked up for $50, so they're a great value proposition for any budget build.
Dawn says my RAM is 4,000 megahertz. Tim's going to love my Dawn.
Ah, nice. Very nice.
Indeed.
So yeah, with our motherboard there, like I said, it's the Value King right now for motherboards. Pick it up for 49 Aussie dollars. So for our M.2 drive here, we've gone with a WD Blue. This is a 500 gigabyte drive here. So this one here is one of the cheaper M.2 drives you can get. I think it's the cheapest that you can get on the market at the moment. That's an NVMe configuration. I think it's even cheaper than some of the Silicon Power ones right now. So pick these up for $69. For our power supply here, we've gone with an InWin, the A55, which is a 550 watt power supply. It puts out 504 watts on the 12 volt rail there. So almost the full 550 that's advertised for, so not a bad power supply, and also can be picked up for 55 Aussie dollars, and it's an 80 plus rated power supply. It also has flat black cables, or I don't know if they're flat, but they're definitely black. So good for cable management. No ketchup and mustard configuration there or anything.
David says, "Hey Tim."
Hey David, nice to have you with us. And so finally, we've got our Deepcool Matrax 30 case. This is a glass side panel case, as you can see here, and this is the Value King of cases. So you can pick this case up for $45. So, like it's like
fans in the front here. You can actually see
it can be configured quite nicely. So you have to drill some rivets out, but you can remove that hard drive tray that's in there, and then you can actually fit full-size graphics cards in this case. So if you're on a budget, you could put some nice high airflow fans on here. You could actually put them in push-pull as well. What?
Oh, I just wanted to see if you can, side mount it.
Oh no, definitely not. Definitely not. No.
Can you hard mount it?
No, you can't.
No?
No, the brackets for it. See how on this is a micro ATX case. See, it's got 4 slots at the back. So we would need 6 slots at the back here to do one of the hard mod side mount brackets here. I can do it on any ATX case, so any mid-tower case or bigger, I can install a side mount bracket here. The only caveat with it is that you lose these PCIe slots because that space gets taken up by the vertical mount bracket. So it's okay if you've got a case and you don't need any extra PCIe devices plugged into it, because you can just put it in there and it's all good. But if you needed those other PCIe devices, this would not be a solution for you. You'd have to look at a case that supports side mount. But
says I'm comfortable for it.
So I'll just pull the front off here as well. So you can actually fit a fan on the front here as well, and you could also fit another fan on the back as well. So you could actually have a decent amount of airflow through here. You could also mount a radiator like that as well. So you could put a little 120mm radiator in down there. But typically, if you build a high-performance rig with a full-size graphics card, you've got a bit more money than $45 to spend on a case. So that is why you won't see the capacity to mount big water cooling radiators in this case, and that's part of the reason why it's cheap, because no one can use it for that purpose. This has to be just an ordinary PC, basically.
To buy me one of those things so I can zoom in and out without touching the camera.
That would be nice. Anyway, let's get started on this build. I think we've.
Jackson wants to know, do you ship?
Hey Jackson, yeah, absolutely. We ship nationwide. So if you need a quote, just hit me up, send me a postcode, and I'll get you a price on shipping.
Even if you live in New Zealand, we can ship there too, but that's gonna be extra.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, that's probably going to be what do you call it? Price restrictive. Yeah. It'll cost too much to ship it there, and it just won't be a good value proposition.
Queensland. Oh man, that's gonna be cheap.
Oh, Queensland. I mean, I'm in Brisbane, man. So you're in Brisbane. So if you're pretty local, I could probably drop it off to you. So anyway, let's get started. We'll have a look at our motherboard here. So you would have seen this motherboard before. This is the ASRock B360M HDV. So I like they come packed with this bit of foam behind them. It just makes it a little bit easier to hold. But yeah, basically this is a pretty basic motherboard here. So we'll go around the features like we always do. At the top here we've got an 8-pin CPU power connector. So basically that is what powers the CPU. And it also powers these other chips around the CPU, because all these other little chips here, they all have intimate roles in the CPU's functionality.
Jamie says, came for the PC, stay for the Psyduck.
I love it. Psyduck's kind of our unofficial mascot after another customer picked him up and he was like, hey, what's that big yellow one? Anyway, so we've got a fan header up here, we've got a secondary fan header here. Are they the only two fan headers on the board? No, we've actually got a third fan header down here. So here we've got our motherboard power. This is called a 24-pin ATX power, and this powers everything else on the motherboard. Here we've got our RAM slots, or our DIMM slots, because RAM is actually the memory that's on the actual chips themselves. The sticks themselves are called DIMMs, or dual inline memory modules, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So down here we have our USB 3 front panel connection. We've got two SATA ports here, and we've got two more here and two more there. They're just on a different angle, so it's the same connection but just orientated differently. And another chassis fan, as I said. These first pins here, these are for our front panel connectors. So this has our power on switch and our reset switch and our hard drive LED and power LED pins. Over here on the next one, that will be our speaker pins for if we want to install the little speaker. We've got these two little pins up here that are on their own. They're called it's called the clear CMOS header. So if you it's mainly not something that ordinary people would have to use, and mainly not something that you would be using on this motherboard. But if you have a motherboard that has overclockable settings unlocked for it, and you do something that you shouldn't do, and now your computer won't boot, basically that is how you reset the settings on your motherboard to default values. So if you do something and your computer won't turn on anymore, you just touch that little pin with the tip of your screwdriver while your computer's running, and it'll turn off like you've pressed the power button. And that's normal. You haven't broken anything. You've just cleared the CMOS. So when you turn it back on, it will basically act like you've just put the computer together for the first time. So moving on, this next one here, this is a USB 2. And same with that one there. We've got some pins here on the board that are just like, they don't have anything soldered to them. And that's because this motherboard comes obviously in a different variant that has RGB headers. So there's room for a 12 volt RGB header here, and there's room for a 5 volt RGB header there. Next one over is our COM port. So this is if you wanted to connect old serial ports and other devices to your computer. You can get a cable that plugs in there and then goes onto one of your PCIe slots.
Connect a floppy drive to that.
Yeah, you could hook up floppy drive,
really?
all that. Yep,
Oh, cool.
No worries. What have we got down here? That will be our trusted platform, and oh no, that's LPT. So that's for like old printers, and yeah, so that's serial. That's old printers.
That's fun.
That's trusted platform module. That's front audio panels. And what have we got there?
That's all the way on the other side instead of,
What do you mean?
on my right.
What do you mean?
Front audio panel.
The front audio's there.
Why is it not on the other side?
It's always there.
Oh, okay. My board's closer on the other side.
No, it's not.
No? Oh.
Every
I'm tripping.
You're tripping. You're totally tripping. Every motherboard has the audio all in this bottom corner of the board. So that's the front panel audio connectors for the microphone and headphones at the front.
I'm getting it confused with the front.
You're thinking of the front panel connectors over there. Yeah. And so all these little chips and these little capacitors that you can see there, this is all the audio system, which will bring us around the back here to all these input outputs on the back. You'll notice that this one here is the audio, and it's down onto this part of the motherboard. Because this little section of the board, this is the sound card baked into the motherboard. Remember we used to have sound cards?
Yes.
Well, you don't have to have sound cards anymore because every motherboard these days has a sound card baked into the motherboard.
Jackson wants to know, do you sell separate parts?
He
He lives 40 minutes away from Brisbane.
No, I don't really sell separate parts. I'm not really a parts retailer. I don't make any money on parts.
No,
So when you buy a PC from me, I just get you the best prices that I can get you in the market.
Sometimes we might have, a random old CPU or
Secondhand parts.
Secondhand.
Secondhand parts.
Yeah,
I might.
nothing new.
I sometimes have secondhand things for sale. But in terms of new PCs, new parts, my business model is not making money on parts. As a PC business owner, you can waste a lot of time trying to buy all this stuff at the right price and blah 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 blah, and then you just end up with inventory on hand that you're motivated to sell to people who don't even need the stuff.
We'd
So
rather
I
just
don't.
make people happy
I would.
building PCs.
Yeah, I make my money from the service that I provide and all this kind of stuff. I don't make money from parts. So I get you the cheapest price that I can get you in the market from wholesalers and retailers, and basically I build PCs for that. There are some things I buy in bulk, things like hard drives, RAM, and things like that I just use a lot of. But in general, like graphics cards, motherboards, CPUs, cases, I generally do not buy up on these items because pretty much every customer wants something slightly different. So for me, I just get everyone the best prices I can get them in the market at the time of purchase. And so yeah, like I was saying before, that's the audio stuff down there. On the back here, we've got gigabit Ethernet. We've got 4 USB 3s. We've got a HDMI, DVI, and a VGA output here. All of these outputs are going to be inactive. So when you get your new PC, don't plug into these ones. You need to plug into
Get a PC from us. There will always be a plug in those PCs.
Unless they have a CPU that has onboard graphics, then I leave them unplugged. Because most PCs I'll sell to people as a gaming PC, it's not going to have onboard graphics on the CPU. So maybe for some people who have a particular case for it, but that's a conversation for another day. And then over here we've just got 2 USB 2s and a PS2 port. This is for older keyboards and mouses and some new ones. I should say mice. The plural of computer mouse is computer mice, believe it or not. Sounds a bit weird, but...
Jackson wants to know what's the cheapest 32 gigabytes you can buy with set RAM.
The cheapest 32 gigabyte set...
You get it pretty cheap.
What do you mean, like, you want...
You can get, like, old green stuff that's, you know...
Oh, no, the prices of RAM and SSDs are sort of about to, like, jump up massively. The prices are going nuts. But right now, if you want to buy some decent cheap RAM, I would recommend this, but the 3200 megahertz CAS latency 16 version. You can get them for $102 at Umart right now, and that would be your best bang for the buck. $204 for 32 gigabytes. You'd have 4 sticks of 8 and 3200 megahertz and CAS latency 16, so pretty good.
Mixers like me, I guess I have onboard graphics.
Yeah, Nick. So you have a K series. So if you've got a K series, you've got onboard graphics. If you've got a KF or an F, you don't have onboard graphics. But if you don't have an F in your Intel CPU name, then you do actually have onboard graphics. So if you do have one of those CPUs and you're plugged into the motherboard, you might want to check that, and if you're wondering why your games are running shit. Alrighty, so here's our memory. So as I said, these are dual inline memory modules. That's why there's the little gap in the middle there. It's actually sort of 2 modules on the same stick. And so it's nice and easy to install them on this motherboard, because this motherboard only has the 2 slots. So we just have to push them in to both slots. We don't have to think about which slot we're putting into first, like we would on a motherboard with 4. And so to install our RAM, just line it up in the slot and then just equal pressure either side, and it will clip down into place and you'll feel it clip in like that. That's really all there is to it. If you get sometimes when you put memory down, you can have what's called a badly seated stick, and that can mean it's kind of like if you ever played like Sega Mega Drive or Nintendo 64 games on cartridges, and you plug the game in and you turn it on, and it's just a black screen, nothing loads, and then what we used to do was we'd pull the game out and then blow on it, like blowing on it would do something, and then plug it back in and it would work. So the blowing never did shit. That's thoroughly debunked. All that you were doing was reseating that cartridge in the slot. There was just a bad mount when you put it in. Some of the contacts on those pins just weren't lining up just right, and you just needed to pull the cart out and put it back in, and it would have worked just as good as blowing in it. And the same thing can happen with RAM, the same thing can happen with graphics cards, and much rarer, it can also happen with the CPU, which we will go on to next. So we've got an Intel i5 9400F CPU.
Nick says blowing did work for me. It did too for me.
No, but you guys missed it. You guys missed the point. It wasn't the blowing. It was the fact that you'd pulled the cartridge out and put it back.
Over and over again, in and it never did anything, and then I'd blow on it.
No, you didn't. Everyone blew on it. I was a kid too. We all blew on it. That's what everyone did. I'm guilty of it too. You didn't do it like that first. You pulled it out and you blew on it straight away. It's instinctual. We all did it. Don't deny it.
Who says it's funny though? They said don't blow on the car.
They did, and literally, I've looked into this. And it's been thoroughly established. You really didn't need to blow in them unless there was so much dust in them that you could notice it with your eyes at a quick glance.
Yeah, well, a lot of the time.
You gotta remember that
it does.
yeah. Well, yeah.
Johnny says can't wait to have a jam on that, bro.
Haha. Very cool. Alrighty, so I'll pull this around. Intel CPUs actually have the delicate part in the motherboard there. So all the pins in an Intel build are actually on the motherboard under this protective cap. And so the actual CPU is just got little pads on it. So there's no pins or anything to break. I could just like chuck this on the ground and just be like, oh well, I dropped the CPU, it's all good. Nothing can really break on it. I could chuck it onto like concrete and it'd be like, oh yeah, no worries, pick it up, plug it in, it'll work. They're pretty resilient. They don't usually break. But these little pins in the socket, these are very delicate, and these are harder to repair than the AMD ones.
James says, yeah, I'm with Mrs. on this one. Blowing work.
So anyway, when we install our Intel CPUs, what I like to do, first I line up the little notches on the side of the chip with where it's going to be in the socket. Then I like to sort of grab it by the corners. I like to line it up. And I try to get it as close to the socket as I can get without losing grip on it. And it'll be like a millimeter above the socket, and it will just drop in like that. Nice and easy. No need to put any pressure on it. The pins are really delicate, and you shouldn't even like press down on a corner too hard. That's why it's got this cap. It applies equal pressure to it all across the pins. So you get all these steps right, you shouldn't have a bad mount on the CPU, because it's probably the most pain in the ass thing to have a bad mount on, because you've got to take the cooler off and all that fun stuff. And for ordinary people, you're going to buy this Intel CPU, you're going to have this stock cooler that comes with it. And it's got pre-applied thermal compound on the bottom, so you don't have to worry about thermal compound. But once you remove it, ideally you have to clean it off and put new stuff down. So you really don't want to have to do that. And so when we mount our Intel coolers, you just got to take the board just off the ground there, because you've got these little clips that have got to clip through holes in the motherboard. So just line it up, just on top like that. And probably best practice is just to go corner to corner like that. So diagonal corners. And then the others should just clip in nicely like that. It didn't feel like it clipped. Oh yeah, it clipped. And then once you got the cooler installed, this is probably the easiest way to pick your motherboard up, especially when you're trying to put it in the case to mount it and stuff, because look at this, I've got so much motion with it, I can get it on whatever angle I need to. There we go.
Travis is chucked on the ground as long as you get on it after.
Oh, anti-static bands, yeah, so mine is, just pull it off my foot, I have mine on my foot at all times.
Tim's got really big feet, so he can't,
So, like, I hate having these things. I hate having them like around your wrist. Just gets in the way. So what I do is I just hook it onto my foot, just like this, and then I plug in I've got a PC that's connected to, it's just got a power cable in the power supply.
Under the desk.
And I just hook onto the back of that power supply, and as it's plugged in to the power there, it's got an earth cable, so I'm actually grounded through the electrical wiring in the house when I'm set up like this, because I'm actually working on carpet, so I'm probably a little bit more prone to anti-static discharges than the average person. But having said that, the overall risk of anti-static discharge is incredibly low, to the point where there are people who have been building PCs for ages and they've never even come across a case where they've had an anti-static discharge. So it's one of those things. People, it's such a statistically low risk that ordinary home users working on their own stuff, it's generally not something you really have to worry about too much. And even if you get, if there's an anti-static discharge, something, you get an electric shock from touching something on the motherboard, it's not just anywhere on the motherboard's going to fry it. It has to hit something that's sensitive to the voltage that was discharged there. So if you could discharge onto something that's completely fine with a bit of static electricity getting on it, and it's not going to cause a problem. So take the total amount of time that you're going to get a static discharge and then times that by the amount of places on the motherboard that you'd have to have your hand for it to damage something. So, what's that?
Oh, people are very, very keen to get their build.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's going to look really cool, guys.
Oh, this is. I mean, this doesn't have any RGB or anything like that. This isn't like the sexiest build. This is like, this is no dollar wasted. This is like, yeah, I've got a small budget. I want as much performance in Fortnite as I can get right now.
I'm pretty sure I can get some cool photos.
No worries. Well, last on the list here, we've got our NVMe drive here. So if you haven't seen these before, these are the modern form of SSD. So, hang on a second, do I have... Got an old one? Yeah, an old one. Yeah, see, I've sometimes got like parts lying around, but it's only things like SSDs and RAM. I don't buy up on graphics cards or things like that. I buy 3080s because you can't get them anywhere. So this is like your traditional SSD, right? These ones before, you would have seen these. And then we've also got these, which you might be familiar with. You might think, oh, that looks like a laptop SSD. But these are the new sort of standard that we use for SSDs these days.
Wants to know, are they better than a standard SSD?
Yeah, so I'll show you this, because it's easy to get confused with these things, and they work a little bit differently to each other. Just going to unhook myself from the computer. And so what we got here are these two sticks. So these are these modern types of SSD. We've got this one here, this green one. This is called a SATA M2 SSD. And so this one here with the two little gaps there, these just run at the same sort of speed that a standard SSD does. They hook up differently. They hook up through the M2 slot, but the information gets transferred through the SATA bus, which is the same system that it uses to communicate with ordinary hard drives and traditional SSDs. These ones, on the other hand, they're called NVMe M2 SSDs. These ones communicate with the CPU through the PCIe bus, which is the same connection that your graphics card uses to communicate with the CPU. So, in short, this one here, they look pretty much the same. You know, just that slightly different interface on the end there. This one is about 4 times faster than this one. And you can get these ones that are about 8 times faster than those ones. And faster even. because you've got this is Gen 3, there's also Gen 4 NVMe SSDs for some motherboards, and they run even faster. So on these ones here, you can read and write data at about 2 gigabytes a second. So basically, between the price difference between these two, they're going to be pretty similar in price, and that's the most confusing thing for an ordinary user, because when you're looking through these parts, you've got two things that look very, very similar, and they're priced very similar. So you're going to think, oh, they're going to work pretty similar, right? When in fact, they work fundamentally differently, and one is way better than the other one. So like I said, this WD 500 gigabyte one, you can pick these up for $69 now. So yeah, so like if you bought a computer from me, that's how much you'd pay for it right now, because they're on special and a bulk buy right now. So I can get them for $69. And so to install these, they just go in these slots. So just on the bottom of the motherboard there's this little slot that says Ultra M2 on it, and they just kind of slot in on an angle. If you can sort of see that, it just taps up and down. And then we just need to fasten it down with a screw. That's really weird. It feels like I've just been bitten by a green ant on my back. Oh, it's gone. You get those weird phantom pains, just like all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, it's like a green ant's bit you. Now, I had a spare M2 screw. There we go. These little tiny screws for the M.2 drives, and we need a little tiny screwdriver piece for it. You can like kind of get them to screw in with an ordinary screwdriver, but it's certainly easier with the right tool. Always easier with the right tool. And so there, we've got our motherboard prepped. And so out of our box, we'll also need this I/O shield. And now we can turn our attention to the case and our power supply. So this is definitely a pretty good value 550 watt power supply that's 80 plus rated. Oh, very nice. Always love a few zip ties with the power supply. Bit of bubble wrap. So I try to do the green thing. I reuse as much packaging as I can. So things like bubble wrap, anti-static foam, anything like that, I repurpose and reuse. Obviously cardboard boxes and stuff are generally just disposed of, but they're 100% recyclable. One thing that becomes apparent when you do PCs is the amount of waste that gets produced with each new PC build. So I try to be as conscious as I possibly can about the waste that does get contributed from this, and try to limit it where possible.
Clinton wants to know what's the price difference on 500 gigabyte terabyte SSD and blue one do you have?
And a 1 terabyte, or just an ordinary SSD in that? I mean, they're roughly kind of the same sort of price points. So.
Clinton wants to know, are you using them on my PC?
Clinton, yeah, absolutely. That's the standard M.2 NVMe's. That's the standard drive that I install. I don't actually install like these old SATA ones, these SATA M2s, or these ones here. I don't actually install these ones in customers' PCs. They're too slow. The only situation where I'd put these in is if you had the budget and you didn't want any mechanical drives at all and you needed the extra storage. I might get you a 2 or 4 terabyte one of these, but that's going to be hundreds of dollars, and it's only going to be if that person would need that.
Jackson wants to know, my mate told me a Logitech G wireless mouse, so I got one. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Logitech make really good peripherals and stuff like that. They make some cheap stuff, but if you get any of their sort of gaming ones, you get decent quality. And you can tell with Logitech as to how good their product is just from how much it is. If you get what you pay for with them. So I'm just putting in this motherboard I/O shield. It's been a little bit tricky. I think this is the case where I sliced my finger open on the I/O shield that other time. Let's not do that again. Not because it hurts, it just gets a lot of blood everywhere. It's just kind of gross.
I do have band-aids this time, so.
Okay, we're like prepared.
Nick says, just buy multiple hard drives, RAID them together and boom, more space and speed and SSD.
Yep, there you go. I did a thing. There was some cheap SATA SSDs. They were like on special, really cheap for like, I think they were about $36. So I bought 4 of them, and then I got a 1 terabyte NVMe drive, and I was like, so what's going to be faster and a better value gaming drive storage solution? 4 of these in RAID 0 or 1 NVMe drive? Because it costs like the same amount of money. And I was like, let's find out. And basically, I used 4 Crucial BX500s, 240 gigabytes, and rated them together in RAID 0. And it was roughly the same speed as a budget NVMe drive. So I was like, yep, pick your poison. Alright, I'm actually going to mount the power supply first in this because there's not a great deal of room in this case for the CPU power. And I believe it may be a little bit short on this power supply. Oh no, it seems okay. So yeah, hard drives and SSDs. I'm going to be putting out a lot of content on the YouTube channel, so definitely look up Tim's PC on YouTube and like and subscribe to our videos and our channel, because we're going to do heaps of stuff like discuss PC parts and how to use your PC and stuff like that. Like, I've got lots of ideas for content that I want to make. It's just getting the time right now to make that. But
you're starting to make time.
Things are happening. Things are happening. Tim's going to have a lot more time for this.
Indeed.
Very soon. So watch this space. It'll be good, because I just think there's so many topics to cover, and that I think people would get a benefit out of things being covered.
Clinton says Logitech G502 wireless light speed is the best. 280 everywhere for under who?
Yeah.
170.
Yeah, and you're gonna pay that for that high performance mouse. I mean, if you want that like really low DPI and all that and all the gaming button features and stuff, they're gonna make you pay for it, eh? You can have a look. What you can do though, you could find some decent mice, you know, on the second-hand market. So that might be something to explore.
Who's that company that you got those free mice through? They're really good.
Yeah. So what was the name of them? I posted on my page like not long after I started it.
Got a dragon on the mouse.
Yeah. The company obviously got a heap of these mice made with like their logo on it and stuff. And I think when they got them, I think it was like a case of, these are not like a good. We don't want these to represent our brand, and so they had stock of them. So they just went, yep. We're giving these we're giving away these for free. You can have as many as you want. Just contact us, and we'll send them to you like within reason. You can't get like heaps of them.
God damn it!
But I reckon it's roughly a Australian $120 to $150 level performance gaming mouse. And we got a couple for free. I just sent them an email and they sent them over from Canada. Even shipped to me in Australia. I think all I had to pay was like $18 shipping.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was less than $20.
Yeah, it was like not. It was like sweet FA. I was like, man, this is awesome. Even if these are crap, I'll just give them away with.
It says for the game on top of the mouse.
Yeah, I don't know what the company's called. It's on my page, so if you scroll back to like July or something last year, you'll probably be able to find it. Just fix this up here. Alrighty. So this case, there's not a great deal of room for cable management, as you can see here by the fact that it's really thin out here. So you're going to have to, if you build in this case, you're going to have to be a bit more creative about how you deal with your cables. And so what we're going to do, we're going to feed them all out here to the other side, just like what we normally sort of do. No, they're good. They're good. I like them. I don't play much in the way of FPS. So for me, I don't really need like a hardcore gaming mouse. The most intense mouse game that I play is Command & Conquer Remastered. So old retro 90s game remastered in 4K. That's my most intense mouse usage. So, and it can get pretty intense. It's a pretty fast-paced game if you play online. Okay,
I use it to play The Sims, so you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we've got plenty of room. This cable will fit up there. So on this case, there's no little hole here to feed your CPU power through. So you're gonna have to feed it through before you mount your motherboard. I've built in this case before and I hadn't built in it for a while, and I was doing a live stream and I literally went and did the whole build and forgot about that, and then I was like, oh shit, how do I plug the CPU power in? and then I like undid a couple of bolts at the top and just lifted the motherboard up, and I slid the cable underneath the motherboard there and run it down to the CPU power, so I didn't have to actually remove the entire motherboard. But this time we're going to remember what case we're building in.
I came across people on PC running 240 plus on PlayStation with lag, which is annoying. It's the need for the patches.
Yeah.
Can't wait to run them up on them all.
Yeah, that's it.
Indeed.
Yep.
Go nuts, my friend.
Yes, that is why. I mean, that's why you buy a PC. You know, it's all about that performance. Consoles are great, but consoles are like, you know, they're great for like casual gamers and like kids and stuff like that. Like,
but if you really want to get into the game.
Oh shit! Is that the wrong bolt?
Oh.
No. There's two size bolts that are very, very, very similar looking. If you put them right next to each other, sure, you can tell them apart. But when you've got them in a big bowl, they're so similar in size that you can basically get them mixed up very easily.
Clinton wants to know, are you building my PC live tomorrow?
No, Clinton, yours will be on Wednesday. Tomorrow I've got a 3080 to build. Then yours will be Wednesday, and gee, I don't know who's Thursday and beyond, but we'll see. It's first in, first served. Whenever you make a payment, that's your place in the queue of getting built. And so at the moment I sort of just have the capacity to do like one a day, but that will change.
So you probably have the capacity to do probably 3 or so.
Yeah.
Clinton says I meant weed, mate.
What's that?
Weed, as in weed, you know. Us. Weed.
Ah.
What are you thinking of? Jesus Christ.
Don't know.
Nick says there's only one Tim. Yeah. Ah, Wednesday. Yes. Sorry. Tim.
Yes, Wednesday. Yep, that'll be the day.
Pax wants to know if this one will light up like the other CC.
No, so this because we've gone really cheap on it. It won't have any RGB lighting.
Can you add RGB?
Yeah.
How much is it?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably
cheap.
put a free RGB controller in there for you, and then you'd be able to hook up some RGB fans and stuff like that. Because you've got 3 fan headers on this motherboard.
How much would it be if you did it though?
If I was to chuck them in, yeah, I can get some for you tomorrow if you want. I could probably put a, what do we do? Got a 3-pack on here. We get 3 at the front. Well, what if we did?
2 at the front, 1 at the back.
No, what if we just did 2 and some RGB strips? So we could do the 2 fans for $45 and the RGB strips for
Totally
$25.
Possible to add how much? Sorry, I spoke over the top of you.
Oh yeah, so basically you'd be looking at, if we wanted to put a couple of RGB fans in here, so I could do them for $45 for 2 of them, and we could put in a couple of RGB strips there as well. We could do that for $25. So just let me know. I mean, it's really, it's no stress for me to get them tomorrow and install them for you. Just won't be on camera here tonight, but that's okay.
It says just full send it.
Yeah, yep,
Totally.
yep. Maximum RGB. Alrighty. So we need this.
Pax says, yeah, do that for us, please.
No worries, man.
We can do that.
Alrighty. So we won't need any
Pax
of
says my
these.
wife wants to know, wants to make sure it lights up.
Ah, yeah, no worries.
It has to.
Okay, so they'll go around like that. Tie them up. And then the rest of it we need.
It says, that's my motto, just full freaking send it. Pax says, let me know how much and I'll send it straight away. No worries, dude. We'll probably send you a message after.
So it's, yeah, so 70, just do $70, I'll send you through an invoice. Alrighty. So we can tuck these cables away down here in the hard drive trays. And so then
Pax says, no worries.
it's nice and neatly tucked away. Yep. And then that'll be fine like that. Then we've just got our motherboard and graphics card power. We've got these front panel cables. So I've sort of tied them down there on the other side of that metal panel. And can I tie them off? Not really, eh? Alright, so we've got USB 3, and that's in a different spot to everything else. Put that aside, all these bad boys. Just go straight.
Pax says, my wife's main concern is that it lights up, so that's my priority. Yeah. I don't blame her.
Well, if you want, I can, because I sell like the power, for example, the power supply that we're using here. I could even swap that out for something else for you if you wanted one with RGB on that as well. It's no issue. I give you like a full refund on the one that you've got, and you just pay me the difference for the other one. It's all good. So let's plug these front panel connections in here.
Pax wants to know what's the difference in price.
Well, now you're asking me tough questions off the top of my head. I would have to check that one for you. But once we've done the build here tonight, I'll check all that for you, because yeah, swapping it out, not too hard, because once we've got everything installed and stuff, it's just a case of moving cables around. So that's our power switch, our reset switch.
Access all good.
Yes. Definitely putting him on the right headers, unlike that MSI board. Remember the MSI board where it had front panel connections and USB headers that looked exactly the same in the same pin configuration? They were right next to each other with no clear markings.
Yeah.
That was fun. And like the PC's not turning on. I'm like, oh, why isn't the PC turning on?
That won't, Pax says that won't have delivery date though, will it?
No, it shouldn't hurt the delivery date, because I can get all this done tonight. I can fix that up tomorrow, and I'd still be shipping it out on the same day I planned. So that's all good. So we just got this USB 3, and I can just slide it up here.
Access, sweetie.
Yep. No worries. Right, how's it?
Access, let me know the difference from the message after you were done.
Yep.
We'll go from there.
Yep, no worries. Excellent. So this is relatively tidy out back here.
Johnny says Pax PC had been getting built. Indeed. It's fun.
Yeah, I like building PCs. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't like it. I like talking about it, I like explaining it to people and stuff.
Tim's a nerd like that.
I've been doing this since I was a kid, so
know.
it's one of those things. And I forget how much I know about the subject. I feel like I'm still just a kid learning, but apparently I'm not. So anyway, on to the main event here. Check out the powerhouse of any gaming PC, and that is the graphics card. So this is our GTX 1650 Super card. Gigabyte. It's what's called Gaming OC. Is that the model? No, it just says Super OC. What's that?
Johnny says looks complicated.
It's like anything. It's like any job. It's like any trade or anything like that. It's one of those things that it's not that any particular task is really hard or complicated. It's just that there's a lot of like little granular details that you've got to pay attention to. And so obviously this card is going to sit this way, plugged into the back, and so you're going to see that inside the case there. So it says Gigabyte there, you got the power cables there. So all we need to do to install our graphics card, it's really easy. Just got some panels to take off the back here. go. Oh. Alrighty, so now we've got those 2 free slots and we're ready to mount our graphics card. So there is a protector on the pins on the bottom there, so you want to take that off. Also check and make sure there's no plastic wrapped around anywhere else on the card. Sometimes they will have plastic on them, and graphics cards get a little warm, so it's important you get rid of them. So I'll try and do this so you guys can all see. So we just take our graphics card and we line it up, and the little teeth at the end, they fit just behind the motherboard. Once you've got it all lined up, it just slots into place like that. And then you'll just have a couple of screws that you need to take care of. Oh, I need to remove that. I've done something silly. There's a PCIe X1 slot above that X16 slot. So by default, it's always those like top 2 that you'd use for the graphics card. But on this board, we're actually using those 2 there. So I need to take out the 3rd one down. I was putting it in, I'm like, why doesn't this feel right?
Can you put that other thing back so it doesn't...
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a hole.
Yeah, oh, I got plenty more where this came from.
Coming out your ass.
Okay, so this is just this little cover that goes on first. Actually, this we need a screw in it to hold it there. God damn it! But this is actually kind of a good thing, because it means that if you wanted to add a Wi-Fi card to this, you can easily do it by just removing this top slot and plugging your Wi-Fi card in at the back there on this top slot. And that way you don't have to have the Wi-Fi under the graphics card where those fans are.
Red ones that I've got and shove up the top here.
So that's the one thing you might want to consider as well, is Wi-Fi. But if it's going to be easy for you just to plug in with a cable, just do that. It likes a smaller profile bolt on the 3rd one down, so I need to There we go. And so now our final cable is just our graphics card power cable. What we can do, we can just slide it in from up here, around like that, and we'll tie that back, something like that. And so there we have it, relatively tidy PC there. Like I say with cable management, it doesn't have to look picture perfect. What's important is that it's all neatly tied away. You can put the back panel on nice and neatly, and that it's easy to work on if you have to change something. You don't want to be cutting out 10 million zip ties and stuff. If you've got a case that's got a glass panel over the back, it makes sense to spend a bit more time making sure everything looks really, really neat. But that takes a lot of time, and I don't really like it because I have to cut all these zip ties off, and like I said, I hate all the waste that gets associated with this. So that's just further waste. So, as we can see there, like, because I've just taken a little bit of time, hardly any extra time, just to tie those cables down and think about where I'm putting them. Now I could just slide that on, like that. Yep, perfect. No stuffing around. Just slide straight on. No holding it down and forcing it down with all your weight to get it closed. There we go. So there we have it. One PC assembled and ready to go. And I will need my Windows USB installation media. I'll need a keyboard and mouse. And I probably need some kind of display. It's going to be pretty essential, I think. And then what have we got here? We've got some ports on the back here. So on the back here, on these video ports on the motherboard, I'm just going to put a couple of little plugs there, just so you know that they're not active. I've got a DVI one around here, don't I? Yeah. I don't have a VGA one spare, but yeah. I think you get the idea. Plug in.
Use the graphics card.
Yes. Are you serious?
It is serious.
Okay. Alrighty. So this is the moment of truth. You can press the button.
Is it on?
Oh yeah, that's the final step. So I'll disconnect my anti-static strap and I'll remove the power cable from that computer and we'll plug it in to this computer. We'll turn our power supply on and now we can try turning it on.
There's a fan going.
There we go.
Axes, they crossed.
Yep, we are sorted.
Yeah.
So now we just have our windows to set up and install now. So it's nice and easy here. We don't have any extra drives. So I'm going to enter PAC's product key in off camera so no one steals it. We're going to install Windows 10 Pro. And we can accept the license agreement here.
Why is that so dark?
You've got the light off.
I do.
Or it's come unplugged. Right, what are we up to? Okay, so when we get to this stage, we always go to custom install. Because we've just got our one SSD in here, we can just click next. Yeah, I've got a second capture card now, so I'm going to set it up so that you'll still be able to hear my voice talking, but all you're going to see on the screen is actually what's on the monitor. Because it's just not ideal showing you guys how to set up Windows and install Windows when you can't see the screen completely clearly.
And there's all these lines all over.
Yeah, you can see the scan. You can see the scan lines because I'm pretty sure my camera can do more frames a second than this screen can do. So it's definitely not synchronized. That's why you're seeing that scan line effect there. There's not really too much I can do about that. I can change the angle. It's way worse. Alrighty, so Windows has finished installing. Everything's looking good, so put these on. Really? When I unscrewed that bolt there, it unscrewed the little metal offset that the screw screws into. I was like looking at it, I'm going, what? I was about to say, babe, did you screw a bolt onto the bottom of this?
No.
That's what I was like. So that doesn't sound right. Okay. So I'll pull out my trusty SSD. So this device here that I use, this is a USB-C. Sorry, where's the USB-C to SATA. So on the back there, that big lot of pins there, that's the power. The small lot of pins is the data. And if you have a look at this drive, you can see that it's damaged. So on the power pins, there's a bit of plastic on the top that's broken off, and there's just exposed pins there. So this drive would be trash. You wouldn't be able to use this in your computer because of that broken bit of plastic. But with this, I can actually just plug straight into it. And now it's a high-speed USB device, which I can plug in with USB-C. So that's why I do it. It's also got this power adapter cable, because you can power more than just a little SSD. Little SSD like this will just power off the USB slot. If you plug in a 3.5-inch hard drive, that will require that extra power cable there. So that's what it's for. So if you wanted to plug in a hard drive on a desktop and you wanted to use it like a USB device, that's what this cable would allow you to do, but you would need to plug in the extra power for a mechanical hard drive, 3.5-inch. The 2.5s work okay. Alrighty, so we can get started now. I wish I could default this to Australia, but as far as I'm aware, there's no way of doing that. Keyboard layout is always US because we use dollar signs. Don't have internet. We do have internet, we just haven't plugged the internet in yet. So we make just the username just user, and we don't set a password because it's not my computer, and if something goes wrong and they need to enter an administrator password, I don't want to have to tell them anything, because if you do have to do that, all you do is press enter, because there's no other password on it. So if it's asking you for a password on one of my computers that's that you don't have and you don't know anything about, just press enter, because I have not set an administrator password unless you go in after you get the PC and you set that up yourself. So if it ever asks you to enter some administrator password and you haven't said anything and you got the PC from me, just hit enter with a blank password. That's all you need to do. So it's now doing the final bit of setup for Windows, and then we get started with my portion of the setup, which is basically installing the drivers, the Windows updates, and all the extra software, and doing the stress and thermal tests on it to make sure that all of our components are operating within normal parameters. We're also going to install Fortnite on this PC. I'm going to check out how it runs Fortnite. So I can plug in some internet now. Champs League, here we come. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Alrighty, so I've just
Dominic
plugged
wants
in.
to know, what is this PC for, Tim?
What is this PC for? This is basically a decent Fortnite gaming
Access
PC.
me.
There we go.
It's for what now?
It's for playing Fortnite. Best bang for the buck that Pax could get on his budget.
We're gonna add
a bit of RGB bling and stuff like that for him tomorrow, because his wife's like, it's got to have RGB bling.
No, but it's good.
It's got to, but like, there are people out there that don't want RGB. Not everyone wants it.
They do. They just don't want to admit it.
Yeah. Well. So we don't have a USB-C on this, so I'm using my little USB Type B to Type C adapter. So I can just plug that in there. Then we use this front panel one as well.
Dominic says, I know that, but for gaming or office.
Gaming, yeah, definitely gaming. It can be used. This is the thing. If you buy a gaming PC, it's going to be fine to use as a standard office PC. It's not like there's any fundamental reason why a gaming PC wouldn't be up to office work. It's a bit different when you go, okay, I want a video editing PC, because, well, I mean, even this will edit videos just fine. It will just take longer to do the render. Because that's what you pay for with video editing machines. You're paying for the speed of the render. So if you're a professional and your income's tied to how much video you can render in a day, then you can get a PC that means you can render videos 4 times faster. you don't even care that it costs 10 grand. You just do it because you're going to get twice as much done in a day, and you probably earn twice as much money in a year. So
maybe I can make 10 grand in a day instead of 5.
yeah, well, I mean, if you're earning money like that, it would
I
just
don't
be.
know, but
I'd be getting a $20,000 like state, maybe even a $60,000 state of the art computer if my income was like that.
I don't know.
Oh man, I'd be $5,000 a day. Cha-ching,
nice.
cha-ching, cha-ching. How much is that a year?
I don't know.
25 grand a
Just
week.
pulled something out of my ass. I'm just like, I don't know. Random price.
Like 1.25 million a year, isn't it?
Oh, that'd be nice.
5 grand a day. 52 weeks a year, 5 days a week. It's like 1.25, right? Okay, we'll get these optional updates going on. So you don't need to do these optional ones, but I like to just download them and install them on customers' computers just because, you know, like, it's better just have that stuff set up and then you don't have to worry about it. If you need it, you need it. If you don't, you don't. I hate all this crap they put down here, eh? Like, you just don't need it. Like, unpin from taskbar. I will get an app from here that I use for stress testing. This app here called Cinebench. This is like a torture test application, and what it does is it basically simulates sort of rendering a video, but it's doing it like the hardest way possible, if that kind of makes sense. So it's a test that's designed to show how hot your system gets at its absolute maximum on the CPU. And we've got other ones for the graphics card that we can run, or we can just run a benchmark in the games. So, before we do anything, we're going to get... Where's Epic Games? Why am I blind? There it is. Alright, so I'll get this going on, and I'll get Fortnite like loading. Let's just get date and time set as well. This is going down south, so we'll set it to Sydney time. Just wait for this to update. An update to do. Start doing some more stuff. Green needs Chrome, CPU-Z. So all these apps that I'm installing, they're either benchmarking apps or they're like diagnostic apps. So there's Crystal Disk Mark and Disk Info, that's for testing the speed and health of your hard drives and SSDs. This app here called Hardware Monitor, this is just for monitoring your system components. So I run this while I do stress tests to monitor the temperatures of all the components inside the case. SI Afterburner. I use this to tune the fans on the graphics card, make sure that they're set at optimal levels and the card's not going to run hot and die prematurely. We'll also get Steam on here as well because Steam is the Netflix of games. You've got to have Steam. We don't have a Crucial drive. We do have a WD drive, so we'll get WD dashboard in. VLC media player. Always good to have that app on your computer. Doesn't take up much space. Let's go Valley for our benchmark. I won't install them all. Hey Pax, do you want me to install Office 365 or any of that? There we go, that's green going black there. That was the graphics card installing. And you probably noticed that the screen looks a bit different, the resolution's different. Yep, I'll put Office on there. You may as well get everything installed here now. I think it covers everything off. Still going with update there. So we've got our Intel Core i5 9400F, which is a 6-core, 6-thread CPU. So there's each one of our cores and threads independently monitored. For our RAM, we've got 2 out of 2 slots used, 16 gigabytes, 2666 megahertz. And this is our M.2 drive here, our WD 500 gigabyte. Got our Ethernet, currently downloading 66 megabytes a second. I need gigabit Ethernet. So like it's, one of my streams is on like low health now. I think it's YouTube. They're fighting for bandwidth. Do you reckon next door let me run an Ethernet cable into their internet?
She's hardly up there anymore.
Yeah, I might be able to just go. No.
Climb it through the bathroom window. There's no screen on it.
I'm from Ipswich, so I'll do it, but I'm not in Ipswich anymore, so.
No, you don't do that.
I could do it in Ipswich, it'd be like, yeah, mate, I just had to borrow your internet, eh? And they'd be like, yeah, okay, cuz.
No.
No, it's not like that. That's the stereotype of Ipswich.
There's nice places like Wood End, where we live. That place is nice.
But yeah, I just realised it's not really going to matter whether we get Fortnite all downloaded and installed and tested here tonight, because we're going to be coming back here tomorrow to install some RGB bling. But it was a bit annoying how it like stalled then. Sort of want it to be. That's done. Getting there, 74%. And so I always put some custom icons down on the desktop, application, games, and a link to this PC. And then whenever you install a new application, you just drag it into that applications folder. And whenever you install a new game-related software, you just drag it into the games folder. Then your desktop doesn't end up completely cluttered. Okay, so don't you hate this kind of stuff? Where you like you don't log into a certain account all the time? Oh, it looks like that's gonna work. Yay! Remembered my password. It's going to have to do that final Epic Games launcher update. Oh, really? But at least I remember what my password is now. Okay, cool. Okay, so that should be all good now. So we'll go and do our reboot. Oh no, Pax hasn't touched a PC since primary school. Oh, that'll be fun. No, that's fine, mate. Yeah, if you need to work out how to do something, just hit me up. I'll be able to help. No, well, I mean, PCs are probably a bit easier to use these days than what they were back when you were in primary school. I would say that in general there's less problems. It's not that there's no problems, it's just that there's less. And the user interface is more user friendly. Okay. So we'll just get Fortnite downloading. Install Fortnite. Alright. So hopefully that doesn't fuck with our stream health too much. CPU Z here. Might make it just a fraction bigger. Might be able to see a bit better. That was weird. I don't think I've ever seen CPU Z crash like that. Oh, it's close this up. Oh no, there it is. I was like, it's stalled again. So this app will tell you exactly what CPU you've got and all the details about it. So it's great if you've got a computer and you don't know what it's running. So your motherboard and model number and everything, memory, graphics card. And you can bench test your computer and stress test it and compare the results online. So you can click on bench and it will give you a multi-threaded score and a single-threaded score. So multi-threaded's when it's using all its processing cores and threads, and single threads where it's just using one core and one thread. So you can kind of think of it like multi-threaded is your video rendering performance and single-threaded is your gaming performance. And so we can go to submit and compare, and it will just bring up a website there in a couple of seconds. It's going to make me a liar, is it? There we go. So we've got all of our CPU temperatures there, frequencies. We've got the same for our graphics card down here. The stream let's let it run some Valley, but let's just run it. Let's just give it a go. So this is a DirectX 11